Hello, everybody. Welcome to Creatacast episode 5 with your host, David Welch. And today's show is really to iron out some of the details about the direction of the show, what I hope for the show, and the potential for this show to get much larger than it is and to expand across the globe. And that's the hope that I'm working towards. And that's the dream I'm working towards the show, the listeners, the poets, the writers, everybody out there that has skin in the game when it comes to writing. I am here for you. This show's here for you. This is a show for the authors. This is a show by an author. Okay? So let's move forward and discuss what really is behind the show, and that's creative writing. In all formats, really. I mean, I'm not trying to limit it to poetry, fiction, and nonfiction. I want to expand it to more performance things like slam poetry, skits, comedy routines, anywhere where anybody does creative writing, right? So the hope and the dream is to build upon a show that will eventually get bigger. So my scaling ideas will go from doing a 45-minute show where I take on submissions, read the content that has been submitted to me, those who are picked, and then place those who are picked in a digital magazine that I want to get generated and get going. So that's the immediate goal. The more long-term goal is to make this show the Joe Rogan experience for authors. I mean, I really want to bring in a world of raw talent out there, people that are in other countries that don't have quite the exposure some of the authors here do. I just want those creative minds, those creative geniuses that are in their raw state and form to be heard, to have their energy reached. So, I mean, because and me as an author, I'm going to be straightforward with you guys. I have felt that pressure, that undercurrent of not being accepted in the creative community. I mean, I honestly have had positive and negative feedback, which is okay. And I have a stack of rejection letters that can go from the floor to the ceiling. And that's okay, too. Keep being creative. Keep being you. Keep being out there working on your craft. And it is a craft. It is perfection. It does take time. Writing is very much like wrestling or jiu-jitsu. It's a balance of, writing strength, and cunning and maneuverability. I mean, writing is very much a sport. And we have to treat it like that way as authors. Okay? Two things that I want to further upon the show and kind of touch on is the use of prompts and prompts being used in the academic setting and prompts being sold on the market, which is great. All of that's fun. I love prompts. But I really want to get at people's creativity when it comes to that and how limiting having to have a prompt may be. Now, having a prompt can open up a door for you as very much as close it, right? So, of course, having a prompt may elicit some sort of creative response that you may never have ever dreamed of getting out there. And we all have some sort of prompt anyway, whether it's a television show or the battery of experiences that we have prompts, right? I do like more organic prompts that where you're watching the news or you're interacting with someone or something happens to you. Those are real life, no shit prompts that bring out the creative genius and the soul of the writer. Now, there are a lot of prompts out there that are, written by writers for writers to kind of perpetuate that craft building program, that craft building mentality where you're given a situation, you're given a prompt, that allows you, the author, to work within that boundary and then maybe expound upon that idea. I think one of my favorite prompts in college was the bear at the door. Okay, you're in a cabin, you're in a space, and a bear's at the door. They're trying to get in, right? And that's all the information you're given for the prompt. And I went right into the bear at the door being, a prison inmate or a convict trying to get in to attack a guard, and that's where I went with it, and that's exposing the creativity of the situation, taking the prompt and running with it. And then the bear was Bear the inmate. He was seen as a bear, very large man, right? So prompts are fantastic. I love them. I work with them. I use them. I endorse them. But I also shoot for more organic prompts, the ones that are in the world already and happening to you, with you, and for you to be creative. Okay? So let's talk about first, let's backtrack a little bit and talk about my intention for the show and where eventuality I want to get. All right? I want to make it a longer show. I want authors to do a Q&A with me. I would love that. And I want to talk about different types of writing processes that are there, different types of abilities people have to generate stories or generate discipline or create discipline within the craft too, because that is very, very tough for people. Some people, like myself, have so many little projects going with my writing because for some reason, and my mental block is I can't stay in the same writing mode for long periods of time. And I'm definitely a recognizing person of that. I know I need to break that if I'm going to produce novels of note and everything like that, and that's what my intentions are. But those who have the discipline down, those who have their aha moment when it came to it, maybe we can learn from that experience, right? So that's the intention too, to bring on authors, do Q&As, and I want raw authors too, people that are, about to get published, people that are, working towards publication, people that are never published anything in their life, and I want to talk about, their fears, their wants, their desires with writing. And I also want to talk to those who have stepped away from writing, those who have, felt that it's a no-win game, right? But they secretly journal, they secretly, do their own writing. They still write, but they don't believe that their writing is going to get out there. I want to target those people. I want to give them hope that, in this day and age, getting out there is a leap of faith, and getting out there and continuing to press upon your work is the name of the game, right? And the game for me is simply this, just we owe it to future generations, we owe it to our predecessors to be creative, to advocate literacy, to advocate creativity, because quite frankly, we're losing it in schools. We are. Creative programs are under attack, music, art, and even creative writing. People are just now doing English in school, which is okay. But we need creative writing. We need art. We need painting. We need sculpture. We need bronzing. We need whatever the hell people do. We need welding. We need magic to happen when it comes to creativity. I mean, that's how we as human beings have always been. Creative, moving forward, whether we're creative as a mechanic, whether we're creative as an accountant, whether you're a masterful person with numbers, you have a creative flair. Something about you is creative. And you experience creativity through other people's art for entertainment. Film, books, plays, etc., right? So without those creative works, we're a very boring, very dull society. We are. So we need them. We need people who need to reignite their value, and then people to keep their value lit when it comes to being creative and being, these creative paradigms that they are. Okay, so the hope for the show, and the show is built upon my audience. I need a larger audience. I need people to share this as many times as possible and get in touch with people who are willing to submit to the show to be read on air or who wants to send me clips of their reading that way, and a copy of their work, so it can be put in a digital magazine and have their work out there for people to read and consume, right? So the digital magazine, I really, hope one day to, make it accessible to everybody, and that's what I want. I want a digital magazine to be accessible to everybody. I want this show to be accessible to everybody. So do your due diligence and share the show and get on here. Do your job and submit to dwelch9627@gmail.com. And I'm gonna create today probably a Creatacast Gmail, which is in the works. I'm still trying to make the show very separate from my own personal email, which would be fantastic. But if people still send me submissions, I'll move it over to the Creatacast side, which is going to be fine. I'm going to create a Creatacast Facebook, a Twitter account, Instagram handle, everything, and then I'm going to move that direction and keep, content on there as much as possible. That way you get exposure. If you're a raw author out there and you're picked to be in the digital magazine, you're picked to be read on the show, you absolutely deserve exposure, not just within the confines of the show. So that's the eventuality that I want. I want those creatives from other countries. I want work submitted in multiple languages, and I want there to be an open world, an open book when it comes to Creatacast. I want this show to be the paradigm of excellence when it comes to short fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction. I mean, I really endorse flash fiction. If you have a very solid story and it's within the 500 to 1500 word range, or even 2000, submit it. Give it to me. Let me expose it to the masses. Okay? That's what I want for the show. Okay? Now, Creatacast, like I said, it's going to be done every Friday. The show this last Friday, admittedly, was very short, but I didn't have any submissions. Please send me the work. Please send me the submissions. That way I can get it on the show. And keep your eyes peeled for a Creatacast Facebook, a Creatacast YouTube channel, etc., etc. Be on the lookout for those social media engines to be worked into the Creatacast mold. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and move back towards prompts. Again, prompts are amazing. They are. They really do help. They expound upon the creative genius of people who are really in the trenches working on their craft, right? So prompts have their place. In fact, one of my favorite books is the 3 a.m. Epiphany. If you do not have that book, go out and get it. The 3 a.m. Epiphany has a world of interesting, powerful prompts that'll get your engine going. Okay? And be on the lookout for the book that I release with prompts, because I believe a lot of prompts that I'm going to create are going to be more organic. And I'm going to have prompts that will require the writer, the author, to move outside of the computer into the real world and garner those experiences before putting pen to paper or, hand to keyboard. Okay? So that's the direction of my prompt book. Be on the lookout for that coming here in the future. Be on the lookout for My Streaming Life, which is my poetry book that's going to be released later on this month. And then, just be on the lookout for these creative works out there, okay? Now, prompts again. Now, I really do love prompts. If you're an author or you're an educator and you have a list of prompts that you would like to talk about on the show, contact me. We'll get on the show on Friday. We'll talk. We'll discuss what you see as an educator, what you see as a creative yourself, and what your hope is for the creative community, and why you do your work. So if you're an educator, you teach high school, middle school, elementary, or even college, let me know. Get on the show. We'll talk. We'll have a Q&A. I'll have prepared questions, and we'll dig deep and You know, it might throw you some curveballs, but well, I want to get to the nitty gritty of where people best do their writing, where people best do their work. I mean, honestly, when it comes for me, some of my best, even though I have an office, some of my best work is done in a Village Inn or a Starbucks, somewhere where I have that white noise background and enough people walking around just to feel included into society. But a genuine fear I have for the creative community too is sedentary. People being sedentary and not being, not taking care of other aspects of their life that they may be missing as a writer. Now, I know as writers, once we get in our zone, we don't want people to mess with us. We don't. We don't want disruption. I get it. Okay. But we also know as a writer that we make the majority of our mistakes after the 15, 20-minute mark of sitting in front of the screen. And part of our process to make the editor's job a little bit easier, to make the continuity of your work more streamlined, we should really be writing in modes of maybe up to 30 minutes and then walk away from the screen. Do something else, focus on something else. Because I know for me and a couple other authors, I mean, we're bigger people, some of us, a lot of us, or we're not as fit as we want to be. But our mind muscle is Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Universe. That's where our mind muscle is, because we're constantly thinking. We're wheeling and dealing in the world of creativity and living in a universe people don't understand. Totally get it. But the balancing act and a good way to mitigate, being sedentary is, maybe looking at history, right? We had several of the authors of the past, Faulkner, I could even name a few off the top of my head. They were men of nature. They loved going out on walks. They loved being in the elements. They loved, Hemingway was a very big proponent of being experiential with his work and his life. Jack London, Gary Paulson, a lot of them experiential. There's a slew of other authors that are very experiential authors that are go-getters and storytellers. We need them, okay? Now, if you're a vocal storyteller and you have a hell of a story, I mean, I really want to integrate that into the show, but I also want a written copy of that storytelling so we can integrate that into the show and get that on the digital magazine. Because there are some really fantastic storytellers out there. Dr. Blassingame at Arizona State, love him. If you ever get the chance in the world get to see his cowboy storytelling show, please do so. He's amazing. But there are natural storytellers out there. There are artists galore that need exposure, that need to be recognized for their effort. Okay? So make an effort to get on the show. Make an effort to submit. And I don't care if you have to submit weekly, because it's going to be the submissions for the previous week aren't necessarily going to be discounted, but they're not going to be brought to the next week's show. So there's going to be fresh weekly submissions that you're going to continue to do.